In Europe, they have started urging Ukraine to give up territory in order to achieve peace. Publicly, European leaders are calling to stand firm and not to make concessions in peace negotiations. But behind the scenes, European leaders have begun to admit that Ukraine will have to make territorial concessions in order to reach a peace agreement. This information is reported by the publication Pais. And their sources indicated that among Ukraine's European partners, there is a growing belief that Kyiv may have to make territorial concessions in order to achieve peace. And such thoughts arose at a time when President Donald Trump, in his national security strategy, directly stated that his administration intends to change its approach to ensuring stability in Europe. To do this, it is prepared to abandon principles held since World War II. They provided for military security guarantees from the United States of America, and the countries that wanted to receive them joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Now, the Trump administration has said that NATO expansion should be stopped completely and that the North Atlantic Alliance should basically be put on hold. However, Washington has promised to boost arms sales to Ukraine by Christmas. But Europe has been urged to prepare for self-defense without United States involvement by 2027. My name is Alexei Pecci. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like the video, leave any comment under this video, and subscribe to my Telegram channel Pecci News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation or paid subscription using the links and details in the description of this video. Any support you can give is appreciated. So, among Ukraine's European partners, there is an opinion spreading that Kyiv may have to agree to territorial concessions in order to achieve peace. According to the publication Pais, citing informed sources, this idea, although not voiced publicly, is beginning to be discussed in diplomatic circles as the lesser evil. According to the newspaper, these sentiments dominated the meeting in Brussels between representatives of France, Germany, Finland, Italy, and the United Kingdom and the head of the Ukrainian delegation at the peace talks, Rustem Umerov. Some European representatives hinted that peace is probably not the same as before. As Pais notes, potential territorial concessions face serious resistance from Poland and the Baltic states, who see them as a threat to their own security. The publication notes that several European intelligence agencies warn against ruling out Russian aggression toward any European Union country within the next 5 years. And here we are. The newspaper's sources also pointed out the growing sense of helplessness in Europe and the realization that it will likely be the European countries that have to bear the main financial burden of rebuilding Ukraine. At the same time, an argument is starting to be heard in European capitals that Ukraine has already won the war, since Russia has not achieved its original goal of establishing a puppet regime. Therefore, they say, it's possible to agree on this and move on. Pais reports that United States-Russia negotiations are deadlocked with no hope for quick progress. And the key question: together in Europe, of powerlessness, just like in Europe, not only together in Europe, Europe of powerlessness, just like in Europe, only in Europe. Together with in Europe, powerlessness, just like in Europe, not only in Europe, only in Europe. Together with this, Europe's powerlessness, and in Europe, not only in Europe. together. Previously, countries seeking military security guarantees from the United States joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. But next, I'll quote from the section called Advancing European Greatness from that very document, the United States National Security Strategy. Quote, fundamental. The United States aims to quickly end military actions in Ukraine through an agreement with the goal of stabilizing the European economy, preventing unintended escalation or expansion of the war, and restoring strategic stability in relations with Russia. And as stated, the Trump administration cannot agree with European officials who, quote, have unrealistic expectations regarding the war in Ukraine. Therefore, Washington intends to shift the responsibility for its own defense onto Europe, stabilize relations with the Russians, and also abandon further NATO expansion. The Trump administration's European policy priorities are outlined in the strategy. Thus, to put an end to the perception of NATO as an ever-expanding alliance and to prevent such a development in reality, Trump says there will be no more NATO expansion because my friend Volodya Putin is very concerned about it. Also, according to the document, the goal of the United States is to reduce military support for its European allies. Europe must stand on its own feet and take primary responsibility for its own defense, the strategy says. Let me remind you that the 28-point peace settlement plan prepared in October-November by Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff at Putin's envoy Kirill Dmitriev's suggestion included a ban on Ukraine joining NATO. European officials and analysts saw this as an undermining of NATO's authority. Such a move would force the alliance to change its membership rules and could also call into question the United States' commitment to the policy and organization. In addition, the process of reducing the 85,000-strong citizenship has already begun in Europe. Europe already. But this will not affect its defense capability. This is insisted upon by the Supreme Commander of the United Armed Forces of NATO in Europe, General Alexei Grinkovich. He assures that thanks to the promises of Europe's allies to increase defense spending, NATO will be even better tomorrow. It is ready to confront Russia, including despite the possible further reduction of United States troops. And on that note, I'll quote the Vice President of the German Marshall Fund, Claudia Meyer, even the initial plan for a peaceful settlement in Ukraine. As she would say, we're no longer an ally, we're a broker. We're not in this camp or that one. We're above all of this. To weaken NATO and the United States, you don't even need to leave NATO. For example, I have a gym membership, but I don't go there.